After installing the editor, we started by going to Start, All Programs, Giant Software. In order to examine the user interface more precisely, we now load a file, a simple scene showing a cube. To do this, press the Files button, which you will find on the lower left-hand side of your Giant's video player. The folder pertaining to this section of the chapter will now open on the DVD-ROM in our Explorer. We see that we are now in the folder Chapter 1, Section 2, and that the file Cube C01I3D is stored there. Files belonging to the Giant's engine are stored in i3D format, an open XML format which we examine in more detail in a subsequent chapter. We create a folder on our desktop and call it Cube Test. We now copy the file Cube Scene01I3D into our Cube Test folder on our desktop and then change back into the editor. At the top left under File, Open, we can now navigate to our Cube Test folder and load the file Cube Scene01I3D. The Giant's editor is divided into different areas. At the top, as usual, is the menu bar. On the left is the scene graph. Here we can see all the objects in our scene, such as the cube, the plane, and so on. Here we have the viewport, in which the scene is shown. Here we see what the active camera has in the field of view. We then have the attributes here on the right-hand side. Let us, for instance, select an object in the scene graph, for example the cube. And now we can set its attributes here. For instance, the transformation properties, that is, where this element is to be found in the world, how it is rotated and sized, whether it's currently visible, and more things. Below we find the status bar, in which we see what is loaded, whether errors occur, or similar information. We can move around in the viewport. First of all, we turn off Framed Rotate here in Menu View if it is activated. And now we can rotate the camera with the Alt key and the left-hand mouse button pressed. With the Alt key and the right-hand mouse button, the camera can be moved in and out of the scene. And with the Alt key and the center mouse button, the camera can be shifted around, up and down, and to the side. If we now turn on Menu, View, Framed Rotate, the camera changes its function. The camera now orbits its focal point. If we now press Alt and the left-hand mouse button and drag the mouse, we now rotate around the point which the camera views. This can be useful if we want to take a closer look at individual objects. In order to change the focal point, we select the cube here in the scene graph, hold the mouse over the viewport and press F. The camera now focuses on the selected object. We can now zoom the camera in on the cube or zoom it out, as well as rotate the camera around it. A selected object always shows a transformation gizmo in the viewport. With this, the object can be manipulated in the world. By pulling here on these arrows with the left-hand mouse button, we can drag the object. It can also be rotated if we rotate on the rings of the gizmo here. As we see, by manipulating the object, the values in the transformation attributes of the object have changed. We can also control the selected object using these values. For example, we can reset the rotation to 0 here, and we see that the cube is now lying flat on the plane again. Or if we enter 1 meter into the y-axis here in the translation, the cube now floats over the plane. These are the basics of using the Giant's editor, and now we can devote ourselves to creating our own map.